Judy and her team, and certainly Stephen too, who's joining us. And John just joined.
Okay.
Good. So we're all here then that who could attend. So wait 1 second to do attendance. Hi, John.
Greetings.
So at 7:02, the meeting is open, and I'll just do attendance. Dean?
Here?
Ashley?
Here.
Andrew?
Here.
Janet?
Here.
John?
Here.
Jennifer? Jen?
Here.
And Margaret? Meg? Sorry.
Here.
And Glenn and Mike and Danelle, we know, could not make it. And Katie wasn't sure, and then of course myself present.
And I'm here, Phil. You didn't call my name. Carrie.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Carrie. How did I miss you?
Okay.
Pardon me on that. I went right by you. Sorry about that. I was checking you off before I got to you.
No problem.
So again, thank you all. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the January 25th meeting. Did everyone get a chance to see them? And anybody have any changes or comments? So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
Second.
And I guess by right, we're supposed to do on Zoom all votes by roll call, I believe is the rule. So, so Dean?
Aye.
And Ashley?
Abstain. I wasn't there.
Yep. And Carrie?
Yes.
I didn't miss you twice. Andrew?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Meg?
Yes.
And myself, yes. I think we have everyone. So our first order of business is to give an update on the inventory and the assessment report.
Yep.
And as part of that, I first want to just acknowledge, one second. I want to acknowledge Sophie Brownsworth. Sophie is one of the two news editors for the Searchlight, which is the Walpole High School student newspaper. And I want to thank Carrie, because Carrie was the one who really got the high school involved, including Sophie. And that was very fruitful. There was a lot of interest. And one of the things that came out of that is Sophia wrote an article for the Searchlight. I just want to acknowledge that. It was a very nice article and puts up the master plan committee process in the front of the students, and I think did a really good job explaining what the process is. It also opened up how students could be involved going forward and letting them know about things. So I just want to acknowledge that and highlight that. And then we want to do an update on the inventory and assessment report.
Yep.
And in a couple minutes, so Judy will give a longer update, but let me just give you a couple of things. So one is we are Judy and Patrick and myself met, and we're proposing, based on Judy's recommendations, on delaying the second community forum to April 27th. It was originally scheduled on March 16th. And that does a couple of things. One, it gives more time to get the report out. Judy is almost finished with it, but just gives a little more time. And then most importantly, it gives us more time to review it. And we're forming the work groups that are going to take responsibility to do that. So it gives us more time and the public more time to absorb it. So that seems to make good sense. We would also still hold, we already have a meeting scheduled for April 26th. So we will still have that meeting so that we can plan for the forum on the 27th.
Right.
And then last, we could still hold the meeting on March 16th. We had talked about, and we had voted, we did a notional vote a straw vote last meeting to hold an additional meeting in order to give more of the members a chance to give their vision. So we could actually do that March 16th. And Judy has offered that if we want to move the meeting to March 9th, she could make, I think you said Delphine?
Daphne.
She could be available to help moderate that meeting if we want to do that. So,
Can't be there March 9th.
Yeah, me neither.
That's a
okay,
con-
so that's something just to think about. And I think we can see how the discussion goes today, but at the worst case, we could do March 16th and again have, that would be our opportunity to have more of a discussion around some of these issues and what people think and what our own vision is and what our own expectations are. So, and we do have the work group, so I'll hand it off to Judy to give more of a background, more explanation, what she's doing and what to expect from the reports that they're working on for the.
So with luck, this will go out tomorrow morning. I am still editing this document. It is 182 pages. I mean, it's a lot of content. It's all the sections except the demographic piece, and I'll explain that in a minute. But when you think about there's like 10 elements in this plan, and every one of them, I kind of told everybody, you're stuck with 15 pages. I don't want to see any more than 15 pages per section, but you start adding maps in and so forth, and the document takes on body that just I think the challenge is, we had like 4 people worked on different sections of this. So my main objective in going through it is not to change what anybody did, but just to make sure the document has a more or less consistent voice. And that's really what the editing is at this point. So I'm just praying to God I can just send this out tomorrow, because I really want to get it in your hands and out of mine. You will see if you check your Dropbox, and we'll send you another link if you can't find it. I've already put comments resolution matrix in there for each section of the inventory. So you're going to get one big document, which is all the sections combined in one PDF. But you know who's reviewing what. And so your CRM, so-called, I'm going to start defaulting to acronyms here, and I apologize. Your CRM for the sections that you're reading, you'll find in the Dropbox. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. So it's coming, guys. It's just a lot of document to review and, distill, and it's coming. I would say tomorrow. I was trying to get it to you by this afternoon, but it just didn't work. Too many meetings today. So that's where we are on that. I think what we do want to do, however, is talk about the vision and goals tonight, and also make sure, maybe I should, Phil, why don't I go ahead and bring the comments resolution matrix up so people can see it?
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. Hold on.
And I just want to reiterate one of the purposes of our work groups was to have one point where all of our comments from the committee members go to, so that work group would take them and would do all of the sifting them together, so that we only send one thing to Judy and her team, as opposed to them getting 10 things, the same thing. So remove all of the duplicates. So this is the form that she wants us to use, and we'll talk more about the work groups in a minute, but that's going to be very important to this whole process.
So it's a really easy form, and if anybody who's been in the military might even recognize what this looks like, but it is a comment form. So it's a way for us to organize and get in a consistent format the comments that people have on the drafts. And so when you review the document, if you have a comment, we're asking you to tell us what page it's on and what line it's on. And if you want me to, you should probably, maybe I'll just ask this question now. Will it help you all if I add line numbers to the document? Because then you don't have to count the lines. We wouldn't leave them in the final document, but I can line number this if it helps. So we just want the page number, the line number, and then tell us, is this a critical comment, like is it really important? Or you have a concern about it? Is it substantive? Is it editorial, spelling, mechanics? I'm going to encourage you not to get too hung up on that, but you're welcome if you want to wordsmith. Whether we accept those comments is another matter, but it's up to you. So we want you to just code it. Is it critical, substantive, or editorial? And then give us the comment in the, in this central column here. And, you know, these are not locked rows. You can make this as long as you want, but just tell us what the comment is, so that we understand, you know, what you're responding to. If it's a comment that is substantive, or if you think we don't have the right information, you need to give us the source. Because I think when you see this, you're going to know a ton of research has been done. And that doesn't mean that we're perfect and we've got it all right, but we can't now go start chasing more information. So if you know that there's something we don't have that would make for a better or more accurate narrative, just give us the source. We'll get it, and we'll review it and determine whether a correction is warranted. What you're going to get back from us is not only a revised draft, but this document with the last column filled in. And that last column may be a substantive reply, either, you know, why we didn't accept a comment or what we did with it. Sometimes when people are reading along, I know I've done this before, something occurs to you and you write it down in response to something you read on page 20, line 5. But when we look at the comment, we said, you know, the comment's right, but that's probably not the way to, probably not the place in the document to address it. So if we have that column there, we can say to you, comment accepted, see page whatever. And you'll then know the comment was accepted, but it's going to show up in a different place than what you had originally thought, because maybe we did some revision, right? So, you know, if we don't accept a comment, we'll tell you why. Or if we modified your comment, if we accepted it but modified it, we'll give you a brief explanation why. So you're going to get back one of these on every single one of these sections in response to the comments that we get from you. So you'll know, it's a way for you to know what we did with your comments beyond just handing you back a revised draft. So there's one of these for each section of the plan. They're labeled, you know, land use, community facilities, or whatever. So it'll be easy for you to find them. They're all in your Dropbox. And I would just say have at it. They're Word files. So you, as I said, you can fill them in. What we do not do, there's two things we don't do. We don't give you a Word document to redline. That's not going to happen. You're going to get a PDF file. We need the comments in that CRM. Please don't email them to us, or, you know, we have to get them in a consistent format so that we can give it back to you. So I would have to say, you know, don't email. If you email us comments, we're just not going to be able to work with them. But if you get them to us in the CRM, we will read them, and we will read every comment, and we will respond to every comment. And depending upon what the comments are and how much effort they take, you know, I don't know right now how long it might take us to get it back to you folks, but I would say you probably need a month, because you're volunteers, you've all got jobs, you're all busy people. I don't want to tax you with this, but I think you're going to need some time to go through these and write up your comments and get them back to us. Obviously, the faster you get them back to us, the faster we can turn around a revision. So, you know, bear that in mind. I would say beyond a month, we probably need to move on. But it seems to me as though, I mean, you know, push back if you disagree, but a month should be plenty of time. You're not reading the whole document unless you want to. You're taking sections and responding that way. So I would say, I mean, Daphne, isn't that your experience? Usually about a month works for comments. So all the more reason why we wanted to move the community meeting to the end of April. So that, Meg, I'll get to you in just a sec. So that if we, you know, we need to make some revisions, because that meeting in April is going to be kind of a reporting out of the inventory. So we want to make sure we're not getting up in front of the people in your town and saying something that you haven't seen before. Meg, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Do we need to send you all the section response comments together, or can they be separate?
The beauty of Dropbox is you just put them in there. The only thing that I would ask, you know, just to make sure you don't overwrite somebody else's comments, change the file name. So, you know, if it's your comments on land use, you could just add your initials at the end. The file names are all consistent. Meg, let me show you again.
Right. I thought that the groups were going to get together and submit one.
That would be the ideal.
For each group, one. But
That's
yeah,
what I prefer. That's what I prefer, because what we can't do is read, you know, how big is the committee? Is it 13 people, Pat?
13 people.
Yeah, 13 times
Yeah.
10 sections, not gonna happen.
right.
So thank you for reminding me of that, Meg.
And we just want to reiterate that anybody can comment on any section. It doesn't matter what work group you're in. The only purpose for the work groups is to make sure that we have some people who we feel are going to specialize in that section. So we make sure that we give good due diligence to each section. And then second, to consolidate the comments. So each work group will have to have an open meeting in order to do that process, that consolidation. You know, so Patrick will help set those up. I will suggest one person from each group to call the meeting unless somebody wants to volunteer. And everybody has the list of who the work groups were.
And that can be at your convenience, guys. I mean, you don't have to, if it's convenient for your committee, your subcommittee people to get together at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, I mean, have at it. They're public meetings because they need to be posted. But you're free to set this up at the time that works for the people who are reviewing with you. I wouldn't make this harder on you than you need to.
And then anyone can send comments to that work group for that particular section. And it would be good to use the same format, you know, the line, the page and line numbers, so that it would be easy for the work group to consolidate those. And the purpose of the work group is not to leave anything out. It's just really to remove redundant items and to consolidate things. So if three people have a comment about one line, that could be all consolidated, or maybe not, but at least it could be all put together. So
Thanks for posting all those agendas, Pat. I know that's a lot of work.
No, it's not a problem. To Phil's point and Judy's point, we'll comply with the open meeting law and take it from there. When the groups get together, just notify me and I can take care of posting.
And remember, he needs 48 hours notice. Right. So the other thing I want to explain to you about the inventory is that for 14 years now, the Census Bureau has been releasing every December the American Community Survey data on which we depend for detailed housing, demographic, economic data. In the old days, which I remember well, every 10 years, same census that was taken for apportionment purposes would collect information from every household, every person in the United States on race, on age, on household type, whether you have children, what kind of housing unit you live in, etc. That for years and years and years, because I'm old, we waited for this patiently every 10 years. But in the late 1990s, the Census Bureau said, you know what, this is crazy. People shouldn't have to wait every 10 years to get information about what's happening in terms of change in their communities. So a new census tool that was only possible because of computers and online technology, the Census Bureau inaugurated this new survey program called the American Community Survey. And so all those data sets that we used to look for in the old 10-year sentence, that's not being reported anymore. When you eventually see the rest of Census 2020, you're not going to see information about household income and housing finance costs. That's all in what we call the ACS, which is the American Community Survey, which is a great tool because the survey's done every single year. So,
and that's a sample as opposed to
a sample.
Yeah, it's a sample of data.
But it's done every single year. So it's a rich set. Well, they come out every December, not last year. Those data sets are coming out March 17th. We therefore have held off on finishing the demographic section of this plan because frankly, I don't want to spend the time writing up that narrative based on a data set that in a matter of two and a half weeks is going to be rendered obsolete by a new data set. So when you see this document you're getting to, I hope to God tomorrow, it starts with section 2, which is land use. And section 1 is in there as a placeholder. It's the demographic profile, but you won't be getting that till after March 17th. So again, another reason to put the community meeting off until the end of April.
And also, I just want to recognize Daphne and Fiora, who are joining us too from Judy's team and doing a lot of the work. And we thank you for that.
Yeah, Fiona labored over 3 sections of this document. Fiona, was it 3? 4.
4.
Fiona worked very hard on this report, so I'm glad
It
you were
was
able.
fun.
It was
Very fun.
Yeah, you didn't look
that's
too fun last week, but it.
Yeah.
No,
So,
we thank you because we know how that is to try to get some of these documents out. And
Yeah.
anyone's, yes.
challenge.
So,
Can I just ask one point of clarification about the comment resolution matrix? I already forgot. You said there were 3 categories: critical, substantive, and editorial. Is critical in terms of urgency or critiquing, or is it
Urgency.
just
yeah.
checking?
Yeah. Good. Maybe I should change. I'm not going to go back and change 10 CRMs, but
No, I must have been putting out when you said it, so I just wasn't sure.
yeah, it's the importance of it. It's like, is this really a critically important thing to fix? And you know, by definition, I think those things are substantive as well. Although, you know, maybe minor stuff, but important. But substantive is really, this is like fundamental information. So they're a little bit different. And, you know, code them as best you can. I mean, well, we're going to read every comment anyway, so.
I feel like that could have been a meme that says, tell me you're a lawyer without actually saying you're a lawyer by asking. I think
but we need lawyers, Jen, to help clarify things. Yeah.
I understand Martha Lyon, our historic preservation consultant, met with the historical commission. Yeah, great, super, thank you.
Does anybody else have questions or comments before we move on? So again, we want to thank Judy and her team for working really hard and you know, getting what we're going to see is a really comprehensive report, a summary of all the information they've been gathering, and we're looking forward to that. So,
So do you have your hand up, or is that a thumbs up? Can't tell.
It's a thumbs up.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So now we're going to do a discussion on the draft master plan vision and goals.
Mhm.
And I trust everybody had a chance to read it and look at it. So what I was going to suggest is that if maybe Judy can give an introduction on it and give her comments, and then what I suggest that we go around and I'll just call on people. We'll go in alphabetical order, give everybody 3 or 4 minutes to give their, you know, their questions or their comments or their, you know, their vision, just to make sure we have enough time, everybody can get equal time. And then after that, we can do a general discussion and open it up even more. But at least we'll give everybody that first chance to comment on the vision. So, so Judy, do you want to start off and
Well, I will, but Daphne's with us, and Daphne, you did a lot of work on this, so I'm wondering, do you want me to kick this off, or do you want to guide this? What would be good for you?
Either way, Judy.
I'm going
Whatever you
to bump it to you then,
Okay.
because you did so much work on this. I mean, I tweaked it a little bit, really. Daphne's the soul of this document, so.
So, coming up with a vision and a set of goals for a master plan is both an art and a science. Basically, we immerse ourselves in all that we've heard, and then we try to understand the frequency that things are said, the intensity in which they are said, and where most people seem to come together in agreement. We also try to identify areas where there is maybe some disagreement or lack of agreement. So the vision and set of goals these are preliminary, these are working, and we hope to finalize them soon. But sometimes they evolve even further as we move along. So, you know, it's nothing to get too worked up about. What I mean is that this is kind of an evolving process. At the end, it will be a final vision and set of goals upon which the plan is developed, because that's the foundation. The 2 basic foundational bricks of the plan are the vision and goals developed by public participation and the inventory and assessment of those existing conditions. So it is quite important, but it's not critical to get all the words just right just now. So I just wanted to say that by way of introduction. So as you know, there was
or John, you might want to just mute your mic.
Right.
So there was the community forum in November 17th of 2021. Then there was the Miro board, which was a social media platform upon which some people conversed and gave their input. About 150 people were on that, about 45 people at the forum, 750 respondents to an online survey. And then there were comment boards placed around in central locations around town, at the farmer's market, the library, the senior center, the rec center, where some comments were collected. And very similar questions were asked in each of these forums so that they could be compiled and we could understand what most people care about, what most people are concerned about. And that's really what a vision and goals do, is address what most people care about and want to continue to preserve and enhance, and what most people are concerned about, feel needs to be addressed, improved, or maybe something that's totally missing that they would like to happen, to exist. So if we want to look just overall, the top 3 features that participants identified as that they most appreciated about Walpole, meaning they would like to preserve and perhaps enhance, were the open space and natural features, the small town feeling and sense of community that people said so many really wonderful things about, and Walpole's location in that it provides access both through the MBTA and the highway to Boston, Providence, and all those things that those cities have to offer: employment opportunities, cultural activity, recreation. And the schools and the downtown seem to follow in terms of what people appreciated. The downtown, people either really, really loved it as kind of acting as the living room of the community, or they felt it was really important but could use improvement, and they saw that it had a lot of potential to be improved. And when asked if you could do one thing to improve Walpole, in all 3 of those venues, these are the top 3 responses: revitalize and make the downtown a destination, create more affordable housing, and make streets safe and walkable. So while there was a lot of agreement about what could or should be done, there was a little bit less agreement about how much money and if money should be spent on making some of these improvements. So really that would be about, what is the role of the public sector, what is the role of the private sector, and perhaps there could be some joint effort made there to address some of these desires as well as concerns. Housing affordability seemed to be really at the top of the mind of a lot of people, along with reducing traffic congestion and making walking and biking safer. So that is pretty much the overview. So if we want to think about kind of the 10 top things that the town should include in its vision and set of goals, you can see, I don't know if do you all have a copy with you? It's about the local economy, the open spaces and recreation, natural resources, the small town ambience that people really want to preserve while the town grows and changes. Work to be more resilient to climate change through shared responsibility, government, residents, and businesses. And that really has become a part of every master plan as of late and considered best practice. Having a wide range of housing choices that really refer to allowing people in different stages in the life cycle to have a choice about where to live, different range of incomes, different preferences in styles and types of homes. Providing safe and pleasant streets for pedestrians and bicyclists and cars to share, and easy access to public transportation. People seem to refer frequently to the lack of what we call first mile, last mile. In other words, from your home to the public transportation and back. How do you do that without getting into a car? And protecting and promoting history and cultural resources. seems to be a lot of pride in the history and in the stories, as well as the actual resources, the built environment and landscapes, and taking pride in municipal buildings and schools. And there was a lot of discussion about community center, library, the schools, the town hall, that this is places where people do business, but also the community meets and then builds upon it. Providing services to protect the health and safety of all residents. So I'm not going to read the vision statement to you. That might be too long. And then we have the 10 goals that address these key issues, as well as cross-cutting themes. And there seem to be 4. To increase the diversity of people living and working in town, came up quite a lot, especially in this survey. To preserve and protect the small town feeling, people really seem to treasure that. And the people that just kept talking about how wonderful their neighbors were and the people in town. Building bridges across polarized positions by creating and promoting a unified vision. And ensuring fiscal accountability. So I would say that's probably enough from me. It would be great now to hear from you.
If I could just ask one quick question first, Daphne, the master plan goals, is there an order to those goals? Does that match up with?
So the order is of no true significance.
Okay.
It's just they have to be written in a linear manner because they're on paper, and they're numbered because it's easier to refer to them. And we should make that clear, and we will in writing at the top of where we list them.
So
They
I'm
really
sort
are
of
in
the
no
guilt-
particular.
I'm the guilty party on that too, because you know what I did when you, I loved the way you kind of arranged the priorities for the numbered items and the short form vision. And I thought, I'm just going to tie the goals in the same order so people don't get confused. But the reality is it could be mixed up anyway. I was just trying to make it kind of a 1-for-1 relationship. That's all.
But really, they're not in any particular order.
No, they're not.
Good to know, because people might assume that was the priorities or something. So
No, it's a very good question. I'm glad you asked it.
So what I was going to suggest is that I'm just going to go through the committee and give everybody 3 or 4 minutes to either ask a question, or if you want, or make any comments you want, and then we open up for a wider discussion. But I just want to make sure everybody on the committee had a chance to say something before we got into too deep of a conversation. So I'll start with Dean. If you
Hi.
have-
Yeah, so I looked at the vision quest, not the vision quest, but the list of the document that they just submitted. And, my goal here is to review the master plan, review folks' comments with the lens of what actually is one of our resources, and that is the environment, the natural resources we have, the conservation land we have, and try to best facilitate conservation and utilization of those spaces, and to see it through, how we could potentially gain more space or better utilize the space we already have, and potentially to make it more popular for people and attract more residents to Walpole, make sure they're happy. That was basically it. Nothing more on that.
Dean, do you feel that the way things are worded now reflect that, or do you feel they need to be expounded on?
No, I think it was very well written. I think that accurately portrays what people were discussing in the public meeting that we had. We heard that frequently on their charts that they had. Everyone was really happy with the natural resources, and it reflects the resources we do have. So people, they understand that we have a lot of green space, but some of them don't know how to access it or how to best utilize it. So maybe that's part of this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. And Ashley, would you like to?
It was kind of funny reading all of that. It's like I felt like I was back at the meeting again, hearing those conversations taking place. I was glad to see that East Walpole made it in a couple of places in the document. I also this shouldn't surprise me, and surprise isn't the right word. It's just kind of a funny thing. If you look at the 2004 goals, they align so much with what we see today. And I'm sure that it might mean a little bit different 18 years later, but it's just kind of interesting to see the same patterns coming through. Like the 2004 master plan talked about smart growth and protecting open spaces and thinking about how we plan for housing. So I just thought that was kind of interesting that a lot of the same things remain true 18 years later.
Thank you.
And Carrie?
Thank you. Just a comment and a question. Well, two comments, I guess. First of all, thank you for all of the hard work in putting this together. I think it's really comprehensive, and as others have said, it really, I think, captures a lot of what we heard in the forum and read online. As the school committee representative, it was very gratifying to see how much support there is for our schools and how much positive regard there is for our schools, and to see the commitment to maintaining school facilities that are going to support the best learning possible for our students. So that was great. I guess I have a question about what happens when some of these high priority areas appear to be not necessarily in conflict with each other, but where there's tension between them. So for example, we have a recognized need to diversify our tax base and to create more varied housing opportunities. Those are really significant. And yet at the same time, we have so many people wanting to focus on preservation of what is here now, small town feel, the open space, all of that. And maybe those things aren't in competition with each other, but at a surface level, they do seem to be a little bit. And so I'm wondering whether, you all as the consultants that are working with us guide us in any way in terms of how to manage those tensions, whether or not you sort of can point us to how they might have been managed in other towns you've worked with, or is that outside the scope of what you do for us, and is that really kind of left to us as the process moves forward?
Well, Carrie, that's a really good point. And no, we do the best we can to help guide you through that. And one of the ways is by identifying locations. So where are you going to intensify your economic activity? Where will those housing options be developed? And what are some ways to help preserve that small town ambiance? And even, as things change, what can the public sector do to support community gathering, community building moving forward? So there's a lot more to discuss about that, but it's a very good point. Judy, did you want to say anything about that?
You cut it well for me. I mean, Carrie, I think the issue is that those items can be in conflict. It's very easy for them to be in conflict, but they don't really need to be, but the town has to make some choices. And I think, bearing in mind that ultimately the purpose of a master plan is to guide the physical evolution of a town, it's appropriate to be saying, well, these are areas that are appropriate for more housing. These are areas we want to save. How do we make sure that we guide development here and take the pressure off here? And if the market is just too strong, then maybe we take more steps as a public entity to protect this land. But we still have housing needs and we still have economic development needs. So where can those go? That's really the function of the plan. So our job is to try to help you minimize the conflicts between those items.
Thank you very much. That's all from me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Carrie. And Andrew?
Hi. Really good. This is really good. I have some comments that I'll abbreviate because Carrie, I think, really smartly talked about some of the tension. And I agree with Daphne and Judy, your responses, that it's not an either or. It could be a both and, that things that seem like they're in conflict, like, hey, we love our open space. We want to conserve our open space, but we're also opposed to new housing development. Like, how do we navigate that and kind of preserve our open space, but also meet the housing needs of the community in a way? And I think your response, Judy, was great. So anyway, I read through this, one of my questions, I'll start there, is with goal number 6. I'm just going to read it, and maybe I'm just being too hung up on punctuation and words. It says, goal 6, housing, increase the range of housing types. And I ask this just because of my kind of fiduciary duty on the part of the housing partnership. I feel like that's my role here. So goal 6 says housing, increase the range of housing types to meet needs of people throughout various stages of the life cycle, and to increase the amount of housing that is affordable and that is designed for older adults. Mm-hmm. And so I see 3 components here, a little bit of redundancy in terms of people throughout various stages of the life cycle, and then later, and that is designed for older adults. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering if we could get clarity here that there's 2 problems. There's a lack of housing types in terms of the options for people to live in Walpole, but there's also a lack of just housing supply that's affordable. And the elderly or older adults are the population that we call out here as being of particular need, but it's not exclusive to them. And I just want to kind of discuss that language.
So I think you're right. I mean, it's not exclusive to them, but I think we heard more about housing affordability concerns for older adults than we did for any other population. So yes, it would be wrong for us to kind of not acknowledge that. But I do agree there's probably some redundancy in there, and that's my fault. I think when I was tinkering with the wording on this, I just kind of lost sight of what the heck I was saying. So, you know, it's really about housing diversity as a matter of choice, recognizing that housing is a product that households choose from, and they choose housing based on the needs of their household. So if you're an older household, there are certain types of housing that probably would be more attractive to you. If you're a family with kids, there's probably certain housing that's more attractive to you. The point is not to end up excluding people from your community because you have a homogeneous housing supply.
I completely agree. And I think we're in full alignment. I just wanted to talk through it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. The one other thing I'll call out is I think that it's not in these goals per se, but unless you read it implicitly, but I think there's a connection between economic development, diversifying our tax base, and what I would call workforce housing. And I think about this in the terms of what our fire chief, Tim Bailey, said recently to the finance committee just a few months ago, complaining that it was hard to recruit firefighters in Walpole, which is an essential public service, because younger firefighters were not willing to work here because the housing in the vicinity that was commutable wasn't affordable for them on a firefighter salary. And so I just think that if we want to diversify our tax base and bring jobs to Walpole, workforce housing is a big part of this. That's not a critique of this vision and goals document. This is a very good document. I just think implicitly we need to connect. If we want to have a diverse tax base, workforce housing is a big part of that.
So we're very careful when we use that term, because when you go into a coffee shop in the morning and you buy a cup of coffee, the person who serves you is part of the workforce, but is not making what a firefighter makes.
Yes.
So we're very careful about not privileging, certain types of jobs. I think the issue is just really what is the wage structure and the makeup of the employment base in your community, and what kinds of compensation do those jobs support, and then how do you think about affordability for those particular jobs, including lower wage and higher wage. So you won't actually see the term workforce housing coming from us because it's really there's a value judgment in it that's problematic in the housing world. But I agree, it's an economic development issue. I mean, I think anybody in economic development would say housing is an economic development issue. We just kind of come at it a little bit differently.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just want to note that when we formed the work groups, we combined economic development and housing in the same work group for the reasons you said, Andrew. But thank you. And Janet?
Yeah, I think it was really well done. I think there's a lot of areas that you could really go both sides. I thought perhaps the community health was kind of interesting too, because so much of this is dependent upon people willing to do that kind of extra. And I don't know that we're going to have that forever in this kind of a economic situation that we find ourselves in. But I think there's a little bit of contradiction in all of it that's going to have to be dealt with. So I think it's, but I think it really is well put together and certainly clears my mind in which direction we're going. Just adds a lot more confusion too. Don't get me wrong.
Of
But
course.
I think it's really well done, and you can kind of see areas that we're going to have to be conscious of our tax base, of our young people, of our struggling people, which is all over, I guess. So I think it's going to be a very interesting process to go through. So this is a wonderful first part.
Thank you.
Thank you. And John?
Yeah, Daphne did a wonderful job. Patrick, Judy, I think it's a good synergistic framework. I just would say off the top, 3 groups I recommended. Given the time constraints, the chamber couldn't meet. The Junior Women's Club actually had a session. I think they did it with Katie instead of me, but the taxpayer group, we could only meet by phone because we couldn't meet your deadline, so you didn't even get the data, but a lot of it syncs with what you have here. I would say that in all the groups I've talked to, this is more like a cheerleading type of view of a rosy-colored glass type of view of Walpole. I think there's quite a sizable group of people who have some complaints or dissatisfactions about taxes, particularly as a number one. Almost all of them think that Walpole town government is getting way too big. $100+ million a year plus the other supplements is you talk about affordability and trying to get diversity of younger and more economic array of people in town. But on the other hand, a lot of what the town does is just the opposite. We regulate the heck out of businesses to make things very expensive, and we through zoning and through we limit housing by snob zoning to make it impossible to build it affordable, and we spend so much that the people's ability to meet tax bills is through the roof. Even my own department, the water and sewer department, we have trouble trying to keep the budget down. And I think philosophically what people mentioned, which of course didn't come through in this report, and it probably shouldn't be in there, but in the tax group, almost everyone there mentioned concerns about term limits for town administration and town committee people, and about town meeting. They had a number of people have been turned off by the town completely. They used to be town meeting members and very participative, and they've quit. They said, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm done. And one of the things they mentioned is there should be a ratio in town meeting. If there's 150 town meeting members, it's good and fine to have town employees be part of that process and be members, but there should be some limit. I don't know if it's 50 out of 150 or 35% or 30%, but I think they felt that there's a small group of people that run the town, run all the committees, and that really the other side of against big government and big spending has no venue to be heard. And I would have to say, and that permeates through probably all the points here, but it's a negative. It's not this is the positive side. This is what we'd all love Walpole to be, these 10 goals and so forth. But I just would have to say it is my duty to people that I talk to that there are some concerns here, and I think you talk about being. I love the words. Everything is sustainable, inclusionary, and so forth and so on. Sometimes it's confusing as to what you really mean by these terms, and I don't know that everybody who lives in a house is a housing expert, but they're really not. And you might be volunteer to be on a town committee, but you have no business deciding where housing is and where retail and commercial businesses. These are decisions that are made by
So John,
financiers, they're made by bankers, but it's a very sophisticated process. You don't just sit in a committee and say, well, I'd like this type of housing over there. We don't want this guy to have any housing. I want open space on his
John,
property and
are
so
you-
forth.
If I
are
may,
you saying,
if I
are you
may,
saying, I wasn't sure, are you, responding to the report? Are you saying that people were saying that? I mean, that's not in the report, right?
I'm interpreting, no, it's not in the report.
if I
This is
may
why
say-
I'm mentioning it.
if I
I'm
may,
not asking it to be
if
in
I-
the report. What I'm telling you is there's a group of people, not everybody is 100% a cheerleader on everything going on in the town. And a lot of these policies kind of assume that there's no problem, in any of
so,
these
so
areas.
if I may
And
say
they have a
something,
different,
John,
different point
John, I
of view.
think
They would
John, if I may
Hold on,
say
John.
something,
Number
We
one
need
would
to
be
let, John, we need to let
taxes.
Delphin,
John,
And well, let me finish what I'm saying, then you can
you-
talk.
just 1 minute, 1 minute, then we need to.
The town was run by a finance committee. And until recently, and I've been here since the beginning, the first finance committee, I can just tell you, finance committee always presented articles at town meeting, pros and cons. There was a group assigned to the pros, a group assigned to the cons. And every time an article was presented, we're always given the option, what would it be if we didn't spend this money? What would it be if we didn't do this? Or what if we did the other alternative? We did a used building instead of a new building, or whatever it is. And that has been totally done away with. And the gentleman, one of these guys, I'll mention his name because he wrote the article in the local newspaper, Jim Gavassos, he said, they don't even
John,
consider
I think we're going off the.
not making our, I'm just making the point that high taxes is
John.
probably number one as a concern, is to get taxes and spending under control. And I think these people have an attitude.
So John, I think you've made your
a long
point.
time. Please don't talk over me. Let me just finish. I got another 2 sentences that you can have all the time you want.
No, we're trying to make sure everybody has a chance to speak, and so why don't you finish, why don't you summarize your last point?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that there's people who have concerns. They're opposed to some of this, particularly in the zoning area. You think the town should not be in the housing business. The town can make housing less expensive by accommodating more reflective and relaxed zoning to allow costs to be low, so there could be lower housing, and to not spend so much money so that the taxes for people who try to move in aren't prohibitive and cause them to move out. That's like common, economics 101. It's not, la-di-da. We're going to have all open space. The whole town's going to be an aquifer. We're going to have all this type of housing. We're going to tell this guy to do that and that guy to do that. I mean, that's nice to think that way, but that's not the real world. And, I guess my point would be, there are some concerns. I wish there would be a little bit more about taxes and spending and about the physical side of the financial side of the town. And as far as in the housing category, I think people have to come back to earth a little bit about what their true role is and the responsibility. The town should not be in the housing business, and it doesn't really know anything about the housing business.
Okay, so I think.
Town can accommodate.
I think you
There's
made
no
your
business
point.
people
So
getting in.
I'd just like
Daphne,
an
you wanna-
opportunity to say
Yeah.
something.
Daphne.
So John, we really appreciate, we really appreciate hearing what you've been hearing in those groups that you've been meeting with. And it's important for us to hear it. But I just wanted to make a couple of points. First of all, this is a vision about a desired future. This is not describing Walpole. I think you may have slightly misunderstood. This is about what people said they would like Walpole to be like. So at this point in time, what we are doing is defining a common desired vision of the future. And then once we do that, we try to identify what are the ways of achieving this desired future state. It's not describing a
Right.
present state. And then those ways are through a variety of tools. We also try to identify funding. Some of the funding may be through the town. Some of it may be coming from elsewhere, grant programs, even private sector. Each of the things we recommend, if it does require a zoning change, that has to go through town meeting. So it's not that the plan is going to tell people what to do. The plan says, this is what people say they want. for the future of the town. The inventory that Judy discussed earlier tells the townspeople what they have in terms of existing resources and assesses those in terms of maybe, short-term future needs. And then from where we are in Walpole to where Walpole says they want to go, we start to identify steps. So right now, we're not there yet. We're not saying how we're going to do it. Right now, we're trying to define, what do Walpole's residents want for the future of the town? And then how they get there and how it's paid for, that comes later.
Right.
And our committee will be very involved in that, obviously. And John, remember, this is what Daphne did, is take all those comments and using her best judgment with Judy and the team, summarizing that and trying to glean out what are the pertinent, what are the major points, and so it's reflective of what they heard, of what we heard. So thank you, John.
Thank you.
And Jen?
Great, thanks. I'll keep it brief. I just, again, I really like seeing it all laid out. I'm thrilled that, one of the goals includes historic and cultural resources, but I think it's another point of tension where that everyone, of course, wants to celebrate and preserve Walpole's history, the buildings and its stories, but doesn't necessarily want to spend any money to do that. And I also think that it's done a good job to capture some of the fundamental, I had written this down before everybody else had their comments, some of the fundamental conflicts that you see here in town. I think it does a good job capturing that there is this tension, and I think you can see it in some of the goals and in some of the other themes that come up, and in some of the word clouds. Some of the words that stop appears very big, as almost as much as friendly small town feel. So that's all I'll say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And Meg?
I only have one comment under the goal 5, climate change.
Yes.
The sentence isn't very clear to me. Build local government's capacity to provide leadership for sustainability. What do you mean by capacity?
Capacity, and Fiona, I don't want to, if you want to jump in, by all means, feel free to do so. But capacity is really the knowledge, the people, the expertise, the credibility. I mean, those are all aspects of having capacity to direct a program, to lead a policy initiative. So,
in order to provide leadership. Yeah. Okay, yeah. It sounded like they were going to go find leadership. Okay.
Sometimes that's what it means. Sometimes you need staff who know this stuff. So it might mean that, but I think it really is about. In my world about local government, you bring certain things to the ability to implement a master plan. One is regulatory. That's like the fundamental police power you bring to the process. One is spending, infrastructure, budgeting, where do you put your money? But the other is leadership. And without that, none of those things really happen. So
I just, the sentence, the way it's written, it just sounded kind of odd. That's all.
And maybe I didn't write it well. I'll go back and look at it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And thank you, Meg. And I think that leaves me. So first, I want to commend Daphne and Judy and the authors of the report, because as Daphne said, it's a science and an art. And just taking all those comments and trying to really boil it down to concrete things, and trying to also capture the nuance without not wanting to lose what people were really saying, and understanding really the maybe some of the feelings behind those comments. I think you did a really great job. I had a couple of questions. On page 2, the chart with, if you could do one thing, what would it be? It looks like the color was based on how many of the different types of forums that item came up in. And again, just a question: is there any order to the items? Because that's always important. Otherwise, people may come away thinking the order is important. And
items, it is, the first one it's in all 3, right? Revitalize the town. Invest in the schools came up on 2, And then we have create more affordable housing came up in all three. So it's just a listing of all of the responses to that question in all of the forums. And then we just identified in how many of the forums did that response come up in.
The most frequent responses across the, yeah.
But there's no order in the, no. So I would just suggest
So again,
noting that.
we could make that explicit.
Yeah, just so people wouldn't, they might think that was the first one, second one, third one, just to, and then the order it goes. And then you also included the conversation data in here too, then as much as you could. Oh, the kitchen conversations.
Mhm.
You included that data in here as well.
The data is not included, but the gist of it.
The gist of it, okay, yeah, no, I just wanted to,
Hard to codify that the way you can in a survey.
yeah.
Yeah, we certainly appreciated those community conversation notes were fabulous.
And then like,
You who did them, much appreciated.
and then like everyone else said, I think understanding the tension, because, I think we all heard it where people want to have more affordable housing. And then at the same forum, I heard, we don't like those apartment buildings downtown. We don't want big housing. So people are kind of, maybe not recognizing how do we get to increased housing, or, so again, you're seeing those tensions and dealing with those. And that'll be partly our job or you're going to be helping us do that, obviously. I'll look into Daphne and Judy on the process. And certainly we as a committee can also weigh in on how to try to fit this together. I mean, that I look at that, I'm just looking for to affirm that, but that we need to be the ones to help with your input, guide how do we frame these, and how do we maybe match up some of the things that can or show how they can be done and still not violate something else that people don't want, the open space and the housing or the location, as you mentioned. I think those are important things. Yeah. So.
And it might be interesting at some point for all of you to identify what you think are those potential conflicts from what you hear.
Yeah, definitely the small town housing, and heard a lot about the affordability of housing, but people have different ways of looking at that. So there's even tension within groups looking for affordable housing.
Absolutely.
So no, that I think it would be a good exercise, and that's something we can do or continue talking about at the March 16th meeting. So I think I think we should keep the March 16th meeting on our agenda or on our schedule. I think we should plan for it. I think there are a lot of things we could do at that meeting. So, another one being have some of the work groups report out what they've seen, just to have a more open discussion with the work groups, with the whole committee as a whole. I think that would also be beneficial. Daphne or Judy, do you have anything else you want to say about the?
Not at this time. Daphne, do you? I'm not.
No, not at this time.
So the next step. So you're gonna this will continue to evolve, is what it sounds like during the course of the.
Well, I think right now what I'm going to do is focus on getting the inventory out.
But I mean during the course.
So we'll take your comments from tonight and incorporate them, and then this will be a working vision and set of goals moving forward. And if along the way something happens that we need to tweak it, we will. But really, this will be the foundation of the plan, and moving forward, it can change. But really, this is what we'd like to say. We'd like to finalize it, but consider it to be a working vision and set of goals until the end.
So if we have more suggestions or changes, we probably should give them to you now
rather than later.
Yeah.
Correct. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah. So if people, I mean, I was just looking through the wording and things, and that, there might be things that people have other, suggestions, or, as we heard some tonight, that would be good to do then.
Yeah, Meg, I'll think about that climate change one a little bit more. I mean, now that I'm reading it again, it's like, Why did I say this way?
So, she said, how Meg said, build local government's capacity in order to provide leadership, maybe even just adding those words.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, and I think the thing that Andrew raised about the housing.
Yeah, that's also in our notes.
That's an easy fix.
That's an easy one, right?
In order to, yeah, that's an easy fix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anyone else have more comments or just want to say anything else about it? Okay, so I think that's all we have, other than to adjourn the meeting, I think. So, yeah.
Bill, I guess I was just thinking of this. If the board wanted to, the committee wants to do the March 16th meeting, and how that's going to be set up. I know myself, I have the ZBA meeting that night, and I definitely cannot miss that one.
Okay.
Oh God, that's right. March
Yeah.
9th doesn't work then, I guess.
Yeah, it sounded like a couple people couldn't make
Do
March 9th.
earlier on the 16th, like 6 or 5.
Yeah, if it could be done at an earlier time, I could be there. If not, I don't know if this is a meeting that the committee just could have amongst itself. But
Well, it might be good if you could be there at the beginning. I
Yeah.
mean, are you guys available to meet at 6? I don't know what your work schedules are or anything like that. The 6
Or
o'clock?
on March 9.
Yeah, or on March 9th. Well, yeah, or on March 9th. I mean, either way.
If it's on
Wait,
Zoom, I
6
can
or 16?
What date is the 6 o'clock? What is that, March what?
It's March 16th, John. It's a Wednesday
16th.
night.
Or March 9th at
Or
6
March
o'clock.
9th.
Daphne could be at the March 9th meeting if we want to have her there, and she can help facilitate the discussion.
Danielle has joined us. Hi,
Yes.
Danielle.
Darnell, yeah. Darnell, that's right. Sorry.
I could do the March 9th ones at 6 p.m.
Okay,
Yeah, I could do March 9th at 6 p.m.
I could also.
So is everybody good with? So we're confirmed that by email, but that would be the plan then to go with March 9th at 6 p.m.
instead of March 16th.
instead of March 16th.
Okay.
And it would be to continue the discussion, give people more of a chance to respond to what their own personal vision is. And also to talk about the work groups and maybe what, and if any work groups may want to report things that might be pertinent to the whole committee, they might want to present to the whole committee. I think that would also be of value.
And Phil,
Yeah.
as you said earlier, it might be an opportunity for people to think about presenting what they hear as potential conflicts.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
And we expect you to read all the information that our consultants are providing by that time.
That's right.
180 pages in 2 weeks. Or at least just our
Yeah,
section.
they go by like that.
Yeah, if we could just read our sections and ahead of the meeting in 2 weeks. And Janet and Danelle, I'll reach out. Maybe we can find a time to get coffee or something to talk about our section by then.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so just go over very quickly the work groups. So the land use and zoning was Katie, Ashley, and myself. Economic development, as Andrew just said, was Janet and Donnell. Public facilities is John and Glenn. Community health and open space is Mike and Carrie. Dean and Jen is natural resources and cultural and historic. And then Meg and myself was climate change and resiliency. So Andrew, if you want to do the housing one, the economic development, coordinate that.
Yeah,
Maybe-
I'll email Danelle and Janet, and we'll set up a time.
Ashley, do you want to do the land use and zoning? Just coordinate a meeting with that.
Sure.
And John, since you're here, do you want to do the public facilities? Just to set up the meeting.
Yeah, I'll set up a meeting with Glenn. I'd like Andrew to get me the invitations on their meetings too, because I'd like to sit in on that economic development.
Yeah, and everything is an open meeting, so anybody is welcome to attend any meeting. Just be very clear.
No, as long as we know when they are.
Well, and I think you're right, John. So
Yeah.
maybe Pat can just send the meeting notices out. Pat's
No,
got-
absolutely.
Yeah, you can just send that out to the whole committee.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Town
And
clerk
then-
will get a copy too.
What?
The town clerk will get a copy too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Carrie-
I mean, it's a courtesy. I mean, just let the whole committee know, and then nobody will feel like I didn't know what was going on. I think that's the way to handle it.
Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion. And Carrie, do you want to do the community health open space and just coordinate setting that up? And Dean, do you want to do the natural resources? And Meg, why don't, I'm on the committee with you, but why don't you coordinate with me the setting up for the climate change?
Yep.
So I think we covered making sure all the meetings get scheduled. And again, I want to thank all of you for attending tonight and all the work everyone's doing. And particularly want to thank again, Pat, for all the things he's doing in the background, making all this work. And he spends a lot of time on this, by the way. And certainly we want to thank Judy and Daphne and Fiora and her team. So for all what they're doing and Fiona, pardon me on pronouncing your name wrong, by the way.
Fiona, yeah.
Fiona, yeah. But thank you, and we appreciate. We understand. For anybody who's worked on writing reports and getting them done on time, when you have a vast amount of material, we recognize how much work that can be.
Oh, yeah.
It can be. It's an open-ended thing as you try to get everything as good as you can. So we appreciate
It's
that.
pretty wild. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
So
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn, and I'll just second.
Second.
A second. Thank you, Meg and Dean.
Yes.
Ashley.
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Jen.
Yes.
Meg.
Yes.
Danelle.
Yes.
And myself, yes. So the meeting is adjourned, and we will send out a schedule for the work groups and also send out the meeting notice for March 9th. And then note that the big meeting is going to be April 27th.
Right.
And we'll be meeting, that's the forum, and we'll be meeting the 26th to plan for that. And there'll be a lot of emails and a lot more discussion about that, but make sure you save that date. Okay, thank you all and have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night. all.